Oh my goodness. Yes, guys, welcome to another Canon podcast, Instant Reaction. I am trying to get myself up for this. I am trying to bring some energy because right now I just feel quite deflated, to be honest with you. First off, order, mate, how you doing?
I've been better.
I've been, yeah.
If I don't
No,
laugh, I'm
it's
gonna cry, mate. I just
mate. We were just talking, kind of just off air, really quickly, and it's kind of a case of right now feels very 2013 Wenger for me in a sense
yeah.
of sure there's dominance here, and I'm sure when we look at the field tilt, and I'm sure when we look at all the numbers, it'll be an incredibly dominant performance. And 9 times out of 10 you would be hoping for an Arsenal win. But if anybody could live through that experience with Arsene Wenger, you knew that at that point in time we were unthreatening, uninspiring. Really was the word, and we never looked like seriously going through on goal. And I feel a lot of those emotions right now. Um, had a lineup that I thought everybody was very excited to see.
Yeah.
Um, and, from that perspective, I felt like there was very little that didn't happen from the outset, as far as a lineup selection or personnel decision went. And then throughout the game, it was just a case of really poor tempo. No one really looking to exploit anything through the middle of the park. I mean, Everton setting up in a really diligent 5-4-1, sure, no problem with that. But it felt like from the beginning to end, we had a issue with central access, and our eights were disappointing all match. And then the reaction to some of the substitutes were frustrating to me, and the substitutions themselves equally uninspiring. So it's a really difficult performance to sit there and maybe defend, really. I mean, you were saying off air, is there anything really positive that you could say about the game? Maybe tell me your initial thoughts on the lineup and your initial thoughts as the game went on, what you felt was missing.
I'll start off by saying at least there was kind of like a little bit of class between the clubs, like Kevin Campbell, the tribute there of
Mm,
one of our own, the shirts being held up for Reyes and Rocastle. I don't want to kind of gloss over that because I think it's really important that we, sometimes there's things bigger than football. And those three men, yeah, I think it was fantastic. The lineup came out. I was so happy with it.
mhm,
Balance again, Gabriel coming back in. And I thought this is a team we're playing against who have not been informed, that are, I mean, factually one of the worst teams in this league right now. They do pose, certain difficulties. Deitch always sets them up pretty well. They're physical, but there are no excuses. No excuses. We lacked ideas.
mhm.
We lacked progression centrally. I just felt that as the game progressed, I mean, I'm kind of skipping over it here, but as the game progressed and that line book got deeper and deeper and deeper, our only kind of answer was creating overloads out wide, cross the ball in, and just hope. And it was just so there were flashes of Wenger, there are flashes of Emery, and give the ball to Tierney, let's cross it in, let's see what we can get. And it was just dire, dire, really.
Yeah,
I, I very rarely kind of come on and think to myself, what do I say? But as I said to
yeah,
you, like, is there anything positive? Because it was, oh,
yeah.
yeah, no urgency.
Yeah. What was frustrating was I just felt like there was a lot of players that had good games that really struggled. So, for example, right
Yeah.
off the bat, I think Martin Odegaard's been someone that struggled for the last couple of games, and he
Mhm.
wasn't having a good game. And then equally, Marino, who was really high in midfield, I felt was out of the game.
Yeah.
Was not somebody. Whereas at Monaco, you could see underlapping runs, you could see a little bit of connection and an attempt to put Martinelli inside. I just felt like he kind of was away from play, maybe making
Yeah.
some unselfish runs, but in possession, his possession was really inconsistent. So poor technique there. The two eights really struggled. And then I thought Kai Havertz was really ineffective throughout the first half. And then you're kind of looking at yourself, and I thought, Timber was steady in possession, but I was looking for a little bit more runs on the outside. You could tell every time Bukayo Saka had an opportunity to come inside, there was a little bit of flash of threatening nature. And I felt like we really lacked effective width. And so we kind of lulled ourselves in this U-shaped pattern. Um, Struggled to really get a standout performer. I thought that, Saliba was tidy in possession. I thought Declan Rice was doing well in midfield, and Miles was, fine. I think as a back six, there was really control in that first half in terms of there was no real big transitions. There was the tempo was maybe a little slow, but as a whole, they weren't the issue. It was really a front five issue. And there was
Yeah.
definitely a disconnect where it felt like there's a back five and there's a front five. And there was no connection between the two. And it wasn't for a lack of at least attempted passes. Like, I don't normally, I sit there and I think, okay, is there any central access issues? Are we not finding people between the lines? I just felt that the people between the lines were hiding. I felt like the people between the lines weren't offering themselves out wide. We kind of get on to players to hit them, especially the wingers. And we talk about, our striker, our Kai Havertz, kind of moving outside of the block there, cheating to the right. And I think even in that instance, I just felt like our midfield wasn't doing much to kind of interact and connect with people. There's a lot of people passing off responsibility in a sense.
Yep. Yeah,
And
I completely agree with that.
there was this almost expectation, well, Saka, can you do something brilliant for us? Get us out of trouble. But beyond that, everybody, I'm just going to keep my role simple, look after the ball because I'm not doing well and I don't want to show myself out. It was one of those performances. If anybody's played, you protect your stats. And it felt like that. You know that you're not doing well, and you sit there and you want to make sure that your passing accuracy is high. And that's what your mentality is as a player. And it's just not good enough. And I think, from the first half, I'm sitting there saying, okay, dominant display, but again, lack of cutting edge, really frustrated about the half space usage.
Yep.
For me, I had earmarked this game as a brilliant way to have Marino off the back post with a Saka cross, or opposite side with Martinelli trying to hit Kai Havertz again off the back post. We saw none of that. And the half space usage was just really poor. It was non-existent for me. I don't have too many stats right now, but I hope we get them soon so we can have a look at it. But yeah, the first half was frustrating, but I felt like, okay, we've escaped that 0-0. Let's sit there and try to turn the screw and up the tempo. From you, anything majorly missing from the first half?
No, I mean, one of the things I was kind of looking at was Gabriel's performance. I thought he was someone that he'd obviously, it was almost like he'd watched Kivior and some of the balls that Kivior had played that hadn't come off. I thought he was very good. I've got the stats here actually for him. So 2 ground duels won, 2 aerial duels won, accurate passing, 94%, but within that there were some great progressive passes, 56 touches, 1 key pass. He was very good in that first half, but it wasn't a problem with the defense. And I think that says it all. When I'm looking at our centre back as one of our most progressive players, I think, yeah, it just wasn't great. Martinelli was kind of hiding. I think Havertz was dropping too deep. Like you said, I had written here, Marino's starting position too high. And in the second half, I felt like he needed to come back to kind of just join in when we're moving the ball around the box, but it just didn't happen. It just,
And you know what? I think what's really frustrating from my perspective is when you sit there. Okay, you can maybe set up in a way in which is not working. That can happen, but the players didn't seem to take responsibility. Bar for me, Bukayo Saka was the only one that I felt really trying to do something. And again, I really get annoyed when I see players protecting their stats. I really get annoyed when I see players not accepting responsibility, and there was far too much of that. Not just in the first half, but I think across the 90 minutes. But we'll try to get to individual performances, but it's tough on a day like today when you feel like there was very minimal people that played well. But all in all, I just think that when you have a look at this team, when things aren't going and we resort to crosses, what frustrates me is, where is your target? If that's going to be something where you're frustrated by you're not able to pass through the middle of the park, you can't go through teams, you're trying to go over them, but we're going over them with effectively Trossard, Jesus, and Kai Havertz as targets in the box. That doesn't strike me as aerially dominant players. That doesn't strike me as players that are going to dominate those areas. So as a whole, when we resort to that, it really frustrates me when we're looking for a winner. I think in previous seasons, we had a lot more opportunity to commit more players forward in the channels and really exploit that width. And, I'm looking at the 11, And with two inverted fullbacks, we really lack the width. And so you're forcing the wingers to be your width. And when you do that, you remove your biggest threats from being in the
Yeah,
middle of the
yeah,
park.
100%.
So
I think
for as much as people like the inverted fullback on both sides, which I think it has its place, it certainly does. But when you do that and you lack width and you lack somebody with an aerial target, you leave your team searching into this U shape, and it can really hurt your ability to vary your attack. And I felt that's really what it was. It was slow tempo. It was unimaginative, and there was just nobody really pushing to try something different.
Yeah, there's no urgency as well. I think I said in the Discord, if anyone hasn't joined the Discord, please join the Discord. It is
Yeah.
fantastic. And I said in there, we just have to get the ball to Saka quickly. The only time I can remember us putting in a cross where there was an actual almost identity to the cross, if that makes sense, was right at the beginning of the second half. We had a ball crossed in from Odegaard, who I've got to say, when we get to individuals, I haven't got very kind words to say about him today. But the ball was played in. Marino was kind of used as a backboard. It came off across to Saka, and then a great save, to be fair, to Pickford. But that was the only one that I can remember that had true kind of I don't know what you want to say. Like, it was a significant cross and not just a cross for the sake of crossing.
Yeah.
We just, it was more of the same. It's almost like a repeat conversation of ours after the Fulham game, that U shape coming back and lack of ideas.
Well, the frustrating thing for me is I think, again, what we tend to do when we reach these mid-block solutions is no one seems to want to vary to stretch the defensive line at all. We almost play into the fact of, okay, fine, there's a bank of 5, there's a bank of 4, it could be a 4-4-2, whatever it is. If somebody's in a low block or a mid block, whatever you want to call it, doesn't have to be too technical. But when people sit into the box, there's two things that you do, right? You've either got carriers that can draw people out of that block to commit them to go and face them, or you look for quick switches, or you look for dynamism in the half space through half space crossing. Like, you look at your Kevin De Bruyne's, you look at your Trent Alexander-Arnold's, that type of pass, that whipped ball from the half space into kind of the box is something that, we have the aerial targets for, but I just don't feel that we use it enough. You've got Mikel Merino, you've got Kai Havertz. These are players that, you have an ability to do it, but we don't play it. It has to be said, I think Mikel Merino was really poor. I think Martin Odegaard's poor. So are eights, and so was Kai Havertz, to be honest with you. I think as a trio, that kind of center of the pitch really lacked any impetus. And so when you've got that, there's got to be a different way of us playing. And unfortunately, I sit there and I look at the options, and I think Ethan came on really early, which was brilliant to see. But I don't think he did much. And, you're not looking at a youth player to kind of save you. And I really don't want to be criticizing a youth player. We shouldn't be in a position in which we're begging for Ethan to come on to change a game, but we're kind of there. And when he did come on, the 8 problem persisted. So it was kind of really frustrating, I think, as a whole. And you're turning to your bench and you're thinking, okay, Jesus and Trossard are coming on. You know what to expect, and that's not a good feeling as a fan. You're sitting there and you're seeing the substitutions and you're saying, I don't think that I get the impression that we're going to change things with these subs. I know what kind of performance I'm going to get. And that's ultimately probably the biggest frustration that's on the minds of myself, at least, when I'm having a look at this.
Those changes. I mean, the first change, we had the double change, didn't we? Jorginho and Waneri coming on. And I presume Jorginho coming in was more of a pre-planned one. I think that's 2 games in a row that Rice has come off around that mark. But I was surprised it was Jorginho, not Partey, due to the kind of the way the game was playing out. Partey can break lines better than Jorginho at times. He can kind of bait the press and then turn and go. So I thought that might be the change to make. But I mean, the second double substitution was the one that baffled me, because that was the one with Jesus and Partey coming on, Partey coming in at right back, Timber then going to left back. And I thought, we're struggling as it is, and then you're taking away even more balance. And I've got to say on this, I was shocked by Arteta. I mean, our options off the bench aren't fantastic anyway, but the choices made just didn't make sense to me. they didn't fill me with confidence when we bring in Trossard as well on the left. Martinelli didn't have a fantastic game, but at least he's one player that he has the capacity to stretch play. And again, we lost that. So we ended up almost congesting the whole pitch. And Everton kind of got compressed. The whole game got compressed into this one zone. And you know through coaching, George, when you you do attack versus defense, when you set up a resolute defense and they're in a good system, which we know Deitch can do, it can become a really, really simple game. And that's, I think, where we went wrong. It was when Aries maybe the only player that can kind of turn the tide in terms of when you are facing a deep block, beating a man and showing different. But we don't have many ball carriers that can do that, if any.
We got rid of them.
And this is the problem, isn't it?
And we didn't replace them, and so yeah, it is frustrating. I think that Mikel needs to find better solutions. And, like I've said, there's two solutions that I've looked at, and I just don't understand why we don't employ them a little bit more. The half space crossing is something where we've got some quality in that position. We've got some quality targets. We don't see it enough. And what it does, just from a coaching perspective, is it increases the distance between your defensive and your midfield line. When you make an underlapping run like that, you're forced to track, and it creates space in the middle. Now you're looking for something like a winger to come inside to exploit that space, but we've got that. And, when you don't do those things, you allow their lines to be small, which is easy to defend. And, defensive distances are all about maintaining short distances. As soon as you increase those, that's when there's issues. And I don't think we do that well enough. When we looked at switches as well, I had to look every time that we did a switch. Very few times was it a really fast-paced targeted switch. They were very floaty out wide. Okay, we're going to switch play to kind of change pace, but there was never really any direction on it. There was never really any impetus to switch play to create a 1v1. It was more of a sense of, listen, we're just going to kind of go through the motions again, fall into that U-shaped pattern of play. But let's get on to maybe some super chats really first, and then we'll try to go through some of the statistics as well. So again, thanks guys for everybody for being in here. It's tough to be in here after a game like that. But Brian Holiday, thank you so much for your super chat. We have to be honest, we are not good enough in attack to win anything significant. No cutting edge. So many chances wasted, too slow. Yeah, I think the slow tempo has been something that we've been talking about pretty much all podcast. And of course, the attack, Ivan Smith as well. Thank you for your super chat, mate. Do we need a striker? Yes or yes. I would do with a bully. I was saying it last time we were on here with Fulham. One of the biggest things is when things aren't going your way, you need somebody that throws away the tactic book in a sense and just bullies their way through. I don't feel comfortable that we have that. I think everybody plays to what they're supposed to do. And I need somebody to challenge this. I need somebody to challenge this game situation because it's going to happen, and I don't think we do an effective job about finding innovative solutions. And, it doesn't have to just be the half space crossing that we're talking about. It could be a little bit more wide overloads, wide dynamics. But even then, we may enter the box wide, but we don't have creative ways of doing that. I think I look back at some of our early Wenger days when we look at the Nasri teams and, the Rosicky teams and the Alexander Aleb teams. There's a technical quality there that allows for combinations, but the idea to kind of move wide, move inside, everything seemed a little bit too rigid. Today, it seemed rigid against Fulham. And I think that's the frustrating thing because it's predictable. It's predictable movement.
We do talk, we have talked in the past about, the overcoaching possibility in modern football. And I do wonder, we almost lack that maverick at times. We definitely lack game breakers, big moments players. I look at the team. I think Saka's performance was great. He was a standout performer. And at times it did feel like our one option was give it to him, see what he can do. And we can't afford to do that all the time. And whether we go along that route and we have a bully in centre forward and we have someone that can physically move defenders, we have someone that can move defenders by movement themselves, tactically moving them. But we just lack any option at the moment. It's shocking. I mean, there's a guy who we've talked about in the past, Osman. He would be ideal. Even in Gyökeres, I think technically he's not aesthetically pleasing. He doesn't do everything that we would want in an ideal world, but he's someone that I love just simply because he does everything with conviction. If he's got the ball at his feet, he's either going to shoot with conviction, he's going to carry with conviction. And at times I just feel like we just don't have that. We just don't have someone that is a natural striker, not a centre forward, not someone that's a false nine, like a proper striker. But
and it's really frustrating because I have a look back, and one of my biggest things when I was dressing the summer and what I really wanted to see was a box dominator and a bully, because I felt like there was times last season that when we get into this game state, we're unable to move people in the box. Yeah. And I still think that's the case. So even though we're looking at crosses, we don't have an effective target there. And so it's the same story as far as that goes. Very similar to Inter, in terms of the game. There was so many crosses. And again, okay, it's fine to do those crosses, but if you don't have an effective target that's able to move bodies as well as compete for those headers, you're going to be left wanting. And then beyond that, you're looking at really dynamic, wide play. And, I'm looking at the Alphonso Davies link. It's something that I've been yelling about and thinking that paired together, what do Davies and an Osimhen give you, for example, which is what this attack is missing. And it's just a level of dynamism in the run, in the carry, and physically over players. And, there's some movement in the box that you can get, but we have somebody that's a bully. And I don't think he's really effective, by the way. Like, I really don't think an Osimhen is going to be somebody that's going to be one chance goal. That's not the point of an Osimhen. Yeah. Anybody looking for the one chance goal right now is going to be left wanting. There's not many of players like that on the market, if any. And, that's just not effective play. I think what really it boils down to when you face these situations is our lack of effective chances that get created. And, I keep going back to that, and I feel like we can do a better job about creating those chances. So quickly, Mafia, thank you so much for your super chat. We, Arteta supporters, need to start entertaining the idea he may not be the guy to win us the big ones. If Chelsea beat Brentford, we will be 5 behind. Yeah, I think every time that you drop points at this point, it's going to be forced into an Arteta conversation. I talked about this kind of on the pod with Alex before. Everybody expected this year to be the year. In fact, people that were even patient, that maybe didn't believe in the process, were saying, listen, we were improving. So I can't really argue, but it's got to a point where you have to win. And I think everybody earmarked this year as the year to do it. Then Rodri happens. And you sit there and you say, well, the title's ours to lose. And so every time you get that, you're going to be left with questions with Mikel. It's unavoidable. For you, mate, I guess really quickly, because we do have to actually go into questions as well. When you look at Mikel and his performance, because he's been at fault for a lot of drop points this season, just as much as we've had red cards, as much as we've had injuries and etc. Where do you stand on kind of Mikel's involvement today and Mikel's involvement in these type of games?
In terms of, God, thanks, George. Real nice question for me. He's got to really take, I would say, the majority. Do I say the majority of the? It's really difficult because the lineup was what we needed. I don't think there was anyone that would have suggested that the lineup was the wrong choice. The personnel was right. The changes, however, were, to me, the complete wrong changes. We're at a point now where this squad has been built by Arteta as well. So, when we're looking at bringing in players like Jesus, when we're looking at players like a Trossard, who's not in the same kind of mold, our left-hand side, this is a systemic problem. And we've looked at it for a number of years now, and it has not been addressed. I think Marino was going a little bit of a way there. Calafiori again. But in terms of we have not looked at our attack and said, we are kind of revamping that. I don't even think Kai Havertz was initially brought in as our number 9. So this is something, again, that we've kind of stumbled across, and it's not something that is like really kind of being prioritized and addressed. So for me, I think he's got to take his fair share of the blame. The players, though, they can't kind of get away with just kind of, scot-free. You said it earlier, players going missing, players not taking risks, players not making simple passes. There was a point where I can remember there was a clear transition opportunity. Odegaard gets the ball, slows down the transition, and then doesn't make the pass either.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a case of, Arteta can't legislate for personal mistakes. He can't. That is not on him. When Martinelli gets a chance in the first half, he can't tell Martinelli exactly what to do in that moment. But, football is that way. Yeah, I mean, looking at the bigger picture, we had up to now made progress every single season. That needs to be kind of remembered, and especially where we were when Arteta first came in. But at the same time, can he get us over the line in the long run? I hope so. If we're all Arsenal supporters, at the end of the day, we've got to hope that. We really, really have to. So,
yeah. No, it becomes a difficult conversation, I think, with putting a ceiling conversation on the Mikel Arteta. One thing that you can say is that I don't think that he's done things well this season. I don't think we did well even in the summer. I know I was very critical of our summer window. I think it set us up for a wrong kind of start to the season. I was willing to see what we would do. And then throughout this, I think that we've seen some instances where Mikel has been at fault for dropping points. Whereas I felt like for a really long time last season, the opposite was the case. If anything, we were well coached to a point that, individuals were letting us down. And I think that's still the case this season. I don't think it's completely coaching. There's absolutely major individuals. For example, we talk about Fulham, and there's no coaching that's going to stop the Gabriel Jesus mischance. There's no coaching that's going to stop some of the 1v1s that we've missed versus Monaco. So it's both individual and coaching. I think what it comes down to me, at least today, I don't like when we get predictable. And, that for me, that could be something that's happening right now because Mikel's getting predictable for us. And we need to look at fixing 3 specific things for me. Really simple. We need to address the box efficiency. I'm tired of it. That has to be a buy. It has had to be a buy for over 18 months for me. And I'm tired for justifying some of the really great output that we've seen in some players, but then not addressing that, not giving this team, I think there's 65 million technically in attack that we've spent over the last 3 years. That box efficiency has to happen. It has to be a buy. It has to be something that we address, and we can't rely on the same players to reinvent it. I don't think looking at Sterling was the answer to that. And if you're going to platform Bukayo Saka to be that man, then excellent, let's platform him. But we don't. We don't exactly platform, and we don't do that. So there's got to be an issue there. I think respecting dynamic width is something I'm really high on in previous podcasts. And so when I say dynamic width, it's not just about occupying wide areas. Okay. What we've seen here today against Fulham, Martinelli and Saka, they occupy wide areas. That's not a problem, though. It's about dynamic, wide overloads. It's about having enough people both sides of the pitch that really offer a running power down that side that are of the same foot. If you're going to have inverted wingers, you need at least one either side to make it unpredictable. Otherwise, it becomes a case of very easy to defend against. Because when you have inverted wingers, from a defending point of view, you just guide them touchline. But what the issue is, and in terms of creating doubt, is whether or not you have somebody with a strong foot on the outside that leaves you guessing. That can come from fullback, it can come from central midfield. But today, when you employ 2 inverted fullbacks, you're looking at your central midfielders and your striker to provide overlaps out wide, and we didn't see it. Mikel Merino, Martin Odegaard, and Kai Havertz didn't provide effective overloads both sides of the pitch. Because when you have inverted fullbacks like Miles Lewis-Skelly, and Timber, next to Rice. That middle three is going to be tight. You need somebody to provide that overlap. And it was a game for Ben White. I was yelling about it in the group chat. You could argue you've got, Kieran Tierney on the bench. I don't think it's the best solution, but it's definitely the better profile for at least having a little bit of width, a little bit of dynamic width. If you're going to sit there and say that you're going to be a crossing team, then yeah, Kieran Tierney could go and have a role to play there. I don't think he's anything long term. It's not something that we should rely on, but if you're going to have that as a mentality, at least lean into it. And we didn't. So there's questions there. And I think the last thing is this half space crossing. I don't think we're very good at it. And we need to be. We've got some aerial targets to be good at it, but we don't. And we don't exploit those things. So those are 3 game states that I think we can improve on as a team, that Mikel can improve on as a team. And I think those are the 3 key things to beating these mid blocks. As you beat the mid block problem, you beat the problem of trophies for me. I think that's the last real block of this team. And I think what's really frustrating is today felt like a case of I got solutions from a personnel standpoint in the starting lineup, but I felt as though I could see this draw happening from minute 10, minute 15. And that's a frustrating comment. That's a frustrating thing to feel, and that's something that we need to address as a team. We can't look at the title and we can't look at those things whilst being predictable. So that's kind of where I'm at personally with this game. How about you, mate? And then we're gonna go to questions. So guys, if you have any questions, just throw it up in the chat and we'll try to get through as many questions as we can.
I don't know about you, George. Like, rather than just looking at the game like in isolation, prior to this season, I said our best chance of like one of the big trophies, because I know that's what the super chat originally said. For big trophies, the domestic Premier League was the one that I saw us having the better chance in. I'm looking at it now, and I think almost, everyone in the chat would probably agree with this, that Europe is probably now our best route if we're looking for an actual big trophy, which is something that Arteta has really struggled with in the past, especially going away in Europe. We have not looked good. And suddenly it's changed. It's really, it's thrown me. It really has, that we've kind of come into this season. We've talked quite a lot about mid blocks being our problem. We've talked about central access being our problem, the left-hand side being our problem. And none of this seems to be kind of improving. And the only way we can do this is either, like you've talked about, in personnel, we get someone in, which is usually the thing I like to go to last, because it's, you get 2 chances in that at the end of the season and in January. That's it. So really you have to look internally. We've lost some options. We talk about the half space crossing. So for today, the half space crossing wasn't good. I think although Fabio Vieira wasn't the player that, was going to answer every question, one of the things he did have was half space crossing. In terms of dribbling and carrying the ball, another player that we've lost has been Emile Smith-Rowe. And so they've both had their faults, and not by any means saying, they would have been the answer today, but they had something in their profile that we still needed. So for us to kind of move forward, we can't be just letting go of players and bringing in Marino. We need to actually be bringing in similar profiles or like upgrades on those profiles. And that's where I am. That's where I feel that today has been our downfall. No tempo, no real answer for Everton. So
yeah, and I mean, none of these statistics seem something that I'm not predicting. Like I said, statistics read dominant performance. I think our play reads sterile. Right? You have a look. 1.3 expected goals, limited to 0.1, 13 shots to 2. 10 open play shots to 1, possession largely in our favor, field tilt excessively in our favor. So at least we won there. At least we've won there. That's where it really counts.
I don't know if I can even celebrate that today.
That joke will fall very flat today. Days. But I mean, even final third entries, 81 to 22. Progressive passes, by every metric, I expected this. I expected an incredibly dominant statistical display. But again, I don't
14 touches.
Yeah, the zone 14 touches was incredible. I mean, you look at the running XG, it's incredibly dominant. Sure, we've got a lot of chances in the box. I mean, I must say, again, Martin Odegaard, for me, don't want to pick on somebody, but that kind of really big red dot wouldn't surprise me to be two of his chances where we had two cutbacks that were really good. I think those far right ones are kind of the Bukayo Saka chance right
Yeah,
outside the second half. That would make sense to me. Um, I don't know if the stats help me on a game like today because I feel, when you have a look at it, statistics don't really tell the story of a game in this type of game. Again, it feels very um, Arsene Wenger 2013, in which,
yeah, and it would be too easy to hide behind those statistics. Like, I
absolutely.
mean, we love them. We love the statistics on this channel. That's how I kind of met you guys. But at the end of the day, sometimes you have to kind of look and just watch the game, and your eyes will tell you all you need to
Yeah.
know. Um,
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. And you know what? We'll try to get through a couple questions as well. So I think there was also one question by Pramod who has been asking this kind of all stream, which I think is a good one. So, George, I thought Mikel was this ball-winning later runs from midfield monster. I am concluding why the left eight is not because of players, but Mikel's idea of that position is not workable. Thoughts? I think that um, actually, we'll go for you for like what do you think? What do you think first?
he is. I mean, he's able to win the ball, especially when he's winning second balls. Um, However, his starting position today kind of negated everything that he's good at. He was so high up at the pitch that a lot of the time, especially when we're passing in this kind of horseshoe U-shaped, over and over and over again, we just lacked any kind of use of Marino. The house-based crossing, that's a perfect opportunity to use Marino. And again, he wasn't kind of positioned in the right place. We weren't kind of putting the balls directly to him. It's just, I don't know, Arteta's use of him today just didn't make sense to me. Just didn't make sense.
I think in terms of Marino specifically as a player, I think one thing today which I don't like is how inconsistent his possession was and his technique was. Like that for me is something that I'd probably be a little bit frustrated with. As far as his movement and his running, again, it seemed disconnected. We kind of talked about it earlier in the pod. Um, I think Monaco was a much better showing. You could
Mm.
understand those underlaps. You could understand that connection. I just felt like Mikel Marino, again, his first touch was off in certain moments. His passing pace was off in certain areas. I mean, there was one really good pass that, again, though, is behind Kai Havertz in the second half, I believe, when he sets
Yep.
him
Oh,
through
I
on
know the one you
goal.
mean.
Great spot. But again, I almost feel like that describes Mikel Marino. Great idea. Execution wasn't perfect. And as a player, that's been the story of his Arsenal career so far. Great idea. I see what you do, and I see in terms of what you do to improve our left-hand side dynamics, but the execution hasn't been completely great. Both in possession and I think out of possession, you're going to get that ball winning. That is a type of player he is. But as far as the midfield role, quote unquote, that's a major question mark in this team. I feel like it switches far too often in terms of impetus. I mean, even look at a game like today, you have Kai Havertz moving back into midfield with Jesus
Yep.
going up top. It's a position that we haven't solved since Granit Xhaka. And it's because Granit Xhaka was somebody that I think glued us in ways that we didn't really understand. He did so many different roles. And part of the frustration for me is you need to commit to an idea, and I don't see us committing to an idea in role there. And that's the first frustration because you buy to a commitment. And that's something that I think is why that side continues to struggle. I think if you had 590s in which you had Calafiori, Mikel Marino, and whoever the left wing that you'd like to see on the day, you're going to start to see connection and chemistry. We haven't had that. But as a whole, I'm looking at Mikel Marino to do a little bit more, especially in terms of him being so experienced. I mean, I don't have time post injury to be patient when somebody's inconsistent with their technique. And, that's something that you should be lauded for. So that's kind of something where I'm critical today. And I think Martin Odegaard had a difficult game. He's had difficult matches, I think, the last, I don't know, 2 weeks in general. It's been struggling. So the eights in general haven't connected. And that's where the team will struggle. So as a whole, I think that, we're gonna struggle to really find the team if we don't find connection in that zone. That's kind of where I feel on it. And really quickly, as a super chat, Samanve Sinha, I'm attempting that. Sorry if I butchered. Thank you so much for your super chat, mate. We really appreciate it. Let's go to closing thoughts. We've been going now for 40 minutes. Guys, thank you so much for sticking in. If you're here, it's really tough to kind of speak after performance like that. So we appreciate you guys. Just keep everything respectful kind of in the comments, generally speaking. Like, we can all be really frustrated and have our opinions, but, we're all here to talk Arsenal. We're all here to talk football. So make sure you guys keep them, respectful as a whole. But yeah, thank you so much. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. Forder, last minute thoughts on the game. What do you're looking forward to next week, next game? When you have a performance like this, you go next game, and that's
move on. That's the way I look at it. With anything in life, if you kind of dwell on it too long, it's going to eat you up. I just felt that this is a game where there was more disconnect. We've talked so much about this left-hand side, and I hate looking at this team as two teams. Does that make sense? So I quite often look at, we have a right-hand side, we have a left-hand side. There's no cohesion there. And I just, you talking about the role that Xhaka had, and I do think it's so funny, isn't it? The grass is always greener. So many of us talked about, can we get an upgrade on him? I don't think anyone wanted to leave him to leave at the time, but is there an upgrade there? And he would have been perfect. And again, perfect player for this match, the things that he would bring to the table. And wouldn't it be nice if maybe we looked into someone like a Camavinga or a Coop Miners or someone to give us something different there? But in terms of where we are, I always kind of try to leave us on a couple of stats. I'll start with some terrible stats for you, George, because I want to put it out there. So Odegaard today, 0 goals, 0 assists, 0 chances created, 0 accurate crosses, 0 fouls won, 1 big chance missed. And I think that really summed up, not just for him, because I'm not just trying to dig him out, but when this is like a key component to our team, I think that just spoke volumes about the performance as a whole. When we're looking towards like one of our talisman to do something, that's where we were. On the flip side, I will say Bukayo Saka, unbelievable for performance again. His ability, his physical capacity is unbelievable. And when are we going to start having referees finally say, maybe we should give a foul there? Maybe we should stop teams doing that, because it was far too easy for Everton. That was their only answer for him today. And hopefully, we can start to get more players back into form. Again, Miles Lewis-Skelly, he was good today. His first half performance was very good. So there are, small positives. I think I texted you before, didn't I, George, saying, is there anything positive? So I'm trying to give something, Saka, Miles. There's another game coming.
Yeah, I think ultimately
that's what I've got, mate.
Yeah. No, I hear you. It was it's a frustrating day. Ultimately, when I have a look at it, there's 3 lessons that I would implore Mikel and the team to kind of look at. Number 1, have a look at your possession and your tempo. We need to up the tempo. Regardless of what the idea is here, we need to up the tempo. It's far too slow at the back, and we need to make sure that we're getting the ball into our dangerous players quicker than they are. Number 2, I need to see a little bit more attempt at connection, especially from the top of the team to the back of the team. We can't be having conversations of a front 5 and a back 5. That needs to improve, and it can improve either through dynamic wide running power, or it can improve through some half space crossing. Either those two you take a chance at, you employ, and we try to add some variety. When you do those things, I think you're going to be a little bit more successful. And then as a whole, frustrating not to kind of capitalize on Liverpool's drop points, but really it's about fixing our play first. And I think when we fix our play, we can start looking at being successful across the season. But right now we need to fix some things that aren't going well. Some of that has to do with balance. Some of that has to do with structure. Some of that has to do with our attacking patterns. But as a whole, I still think that this is a very good team. I still think that this is absolutely a team with top players, and we're showing better than what we are right now. And so we need to start maybe getting back to a little bit more of some fundamentals and some things that we know and we can enjoy from this team, because we've got a team of brilliant players. We've got a brilliant squad, but right now the squad has to show its quality. And I think it's not showing its quality right now. So that's kind of the first step of the equation. And that's kind of it for me. So, guys, thank you so much for sticking with us. We really appreciate your support. And we appreciate you guys sticking with us, kind of outside of a really tough, uninspiring draw at the end of the day. So thank you so much, guys. We hope you guys enjoy. We'll have kind of a post-match reaction of all of this kind of over the weekend. We'll kind of try to record it. We'll try to have it out early next week. We'll have some transfer pods next week. We'll bring back some scouted. If things aren't going well, you look to transfers to fix you as usual. So we'll have a look, maybe Antoine Semenyo is somebody I really like. So maybe we'll have a look at him, and we'll have a look at some data pods and some youth pods coming up for you guys. So we hope you enjoy that. If you do, make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. You guys can hit, the Patreon link down below if you want to have a look at some other pods that we have going for you. And yeah, just stick together, make sure you keep successful, and, we will have a better days ahead, I'm sure. So thank you guys so much, and thanks for keeping it Arsenal. I don't.
We'll try that again. Thanks for keeping it Arsenal. Whenever you're ready, George.
I know this won't work. I guess it wants us to stay. It wants us to keep talking.
Hey guys, there we go. There's some positivity. Everyone's got to see how good George is with tech. Amazing.
100%. I've got this like pinwheel of death going right now on my computer. So hold on a second.
Do I have to vamp now? Anyone got some jokes for us? Anyone got some jokes just to fill in the time? This is bonus content, by the way. This is, Lord M is right. We're all good.
It won't let me end the stream.
We'll just be live. So Alex hasn't obviously been able to come here, so we're going to just stay live until Alex returns. So he's had prior arrangements today. I don't know what George is getting here, by the way. Anyone? When is the scouted episode coming out?
Well, we can talk about that maybe. Clearly, because it won't let me leave. But I mean, the scouted will be coming out probably next Wednesday. Until I get this pinwheel out. So that'll definitely be something to come into. Let's see what else do we got going. We've also got I think it's gonna let me end. It won't. Every time it wants me to end the stream, it pinwheels of death. It wants me to continue enjoying this instant reaction.
The Cannon podcast live, is that back this week as well, George?
Yeah, that will be back. That will be back this week. Yeah, unfortunately, Rohan's been in India, and Alex is at a wedding today. So unfortunately, they were unable to do the TCP live. So we'll be back with TCP live next week. All programming as usual. We'll come out with a scouted. I have seen like Jeremy Binu Giddens as well as an option for scouted. I know it's a player I like as well. Ooh. So between that, Antoine Semenyo, those are some options as far as scouted goes. There was an attempt to do a rewatch, but I don't know if anybody wants to sit through a rewatch of a game like this. So maybe while I figure out this pinwheel of death, and since it won't let me go off live, maybe you guys in the comments can drop down below if you guys would like to see a specific scouted of a particular player. It could be, anybody that, you'd look to recruit transfer wise, or it could be somebody, even in the team. Like we've done a recent Martinelli scouted as well. So, we could have a look at that. And I believe Forder as well, you've got some interesting content that maybe you could tease in the meantime about some trivia stuff that you wanted to do. So maybe we could kind of introduce that slowly.
Yeah. So if any of you have subscribed to my channel, I've obviously had Rohan and Alex on there for a little Arsenal quiz. So we're looking at kind of not just doing your regular Arsenal quiz, but we're looking at doing something to involve maybe the community, maybe some other content creators. can't go into too much detail with what it is, but if anyone's kind of interested, drop some ideas in a Discord. Also, hopefully, we'll have some more thumbnails coming out. So if any of you want to help with some ideas, because right now, especially with the mood as it is after that draw, although it sounds like we've lost today, George, do you know what I mean? That's where we are right now, isn't it? But if anyone has any ideas for some creative just juices flowing to help, that would be amazing, because I think right now we're gonna are we ending? Are we ending, George?
Is it?
No, we're not.
No,
it's not. It's not. I thought it was then.
I'm gonna try to exit my Chrome, and I'll try to come back in for it, so I'll be like a minute. Hold on.
Oh, we've got a super chat. I can't. Can you bring it up, George? So just so everyone's aware right now, this is the third time in a row that I've been brought in and George has abandoned me. So I think that speaks more about George than it does me. Alejandro, great question. For me, it is Davies all day long. I think the ability, like the physical capacity he has, the ability on transitions. He's also able to play on the wing, which is something that would kind of give us a lot of different options, especially in a game like today. So for me, Davies, I would presume if George ever returns here, George is going to agree. George, there's a little question here on the super chat, if you want to address it before we try to quit and go.
Yes, if my computer will work for me. So let me see. It's not showing. I can't even see the super chat to pull it up, unfortunately.
By the way, everyone, thank you so much for staying. Like after a game like today, it just shows how great this community is. So like it is much appreciated.
Oh my god! You know what? I think it's because I exited. I can't show it in. Can we read it out though? Just as a player or as a person who, or maybe yeah. Could you read out the name for me, Porter? And
it's Alejandro. Oh, this is going to be really hard.
Bercio.
Tiburcio.
Yeah. He's brilliant. He's always an excellent contributor to the channel.
So he is saying more. Oh, see, I have terror. This is my Cornish coming out, George. So deep south, essentially, for England. Samu
Amorodian.
Thank you, George. Or Davies.
As a January transfer, like just in general, I'd love both.
Yes.
I'd love both for very different reasons. Look, I've loved, anybody that's looked at me kind of on X knows how much I really enjoy Samuel Morojan. I think he's the exact profile player that we're looking at. The only reason I have him below, say, a Victor Osimhen is because for me, Osimhen's experience, but he's in that same mode. He's kind of a channel running striker that's able to overlap kind of wide, but he's got brilliant ball striking and he's just a bully. He's a bully in the box. He is somebody that I would have a look at, absolutely. And, you know, that could be somebody that we have a look at in terms of scouted as well. So definitely something that we can continue there. I think as far as Alphonso Davies goes, that just for me is kind of, as a Canadian, I would love to see a Canadian. I think he would be brilliant. He kind of brings you not just the left back thrust that we know that we have with him. As far as his kind of right wing versatility, as a Canadian, I can tell you it's not been as good as what people think. He has the versatility. He has enough to absolutely be Saka deputy. But, you know, if you're looking at a team in terms of having him as your starting right wing, that's going to be something that you're going to struggle with, right? So, but I don't think you need that when you're looking at depth. So from an Alphonso Davies perspective, I just think it's brilliant. It's a profile that we lack kind of in the team. It's going to be another case of saying really another left back, but it's more of an attacking change than it is a defensive change, especially when you have a look at what he's able to provide in those wide areas and in arriving in those wide areas. So but it's all feasibility with Alphonso Davies, isn't it? It's a case of saying, like, okay, yes, it's a free agent, but you're looking at, is he choosing you over Real Madrid? What's the situation there? And beyond that, I think we should absolutely be there. I think every top team should be there with with Alphonso Davies. This is a
I
top
don't think we
quality
can
free agent.
pass up an opportunity in January not to make an offer before that contract starts going down, because
Yeah.
it looks to me like he won't be staying at Bayern unless he's, playing hardball and essentially put them in a position where they have to give him a contract that they don't want to give him. We know what Bayern are like. We need to almost make just make an offer for the sake of making an offer, because if you don't, I think that opportunity may never ever come back again for a player of that profile.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see where that goes, especially with Trent's deal running down. I think that'll be interesting to see how it affects Real's transfer plans.
No, absolutely. And you know what? I'm lucky. I think my computer is finally allowing me to end the stream. So, guys, thank you so much for all 365 of you that have stayed to the end watching. We really appreciate kind of you guys sticking around. Thank you for sticking around and suffering with me through technology. We will be a little bit better. Again, I will try this conclusion again, but there will be brighter days ahead. It can be frustrating. You can critique the team, and it was a poor day at the office for both Mikel, the team, and the players. But definitely something that we're going to try to break down, try to improve, and provide solutions for, because, at the end of the day, that's kind of what this channel is trying to be built on, just solutions. And, we're all frustrated and we're all disappointed, sad, but it's kind of a case of trying to say, okay, the next game provides an opportunity to fix those, and let's try to fix the team, the play. And once the play gets there, then we can talk a little bit about the future and kind of what that means as far as our achievements this season and what we can do to salvage that. But I think right now the number one priority is to fix the play, because right now it's a little bit too predictable, and we'll try to do some of the things that we talked about in the pod. So really appreciate you guys sticking with us. Forder, mate, thanks for sticking through with this. It's always a pleasure.
Thanks for abandoning me third time in a row, George. Always a pleasure, mate.
Deep end round 3. But yeah, thank you guys. Thank you guys so much. We really appreciate it. Thank you for all your super chats. We really appreciate it. And thank you for all your support. We appreciate that even more. And thank you guys for sticking with us. And thanks for keeping it Arsenal.